In this video, I'm going to show you how you can capture the value of your conversion with Google Tag Manager to implement a conversion value in your tags, such as the conversion tracking of AdWords or the Facebook pixel. All and more coming up, so let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to another video of MeasureSchool.com, where we teach you the data-driven way of digital marketing. My name is Julian, and let's get started talking about the conversion value, which are important in conversion tracking. So for example, in these tags here, for the AdWords conversion tag, we have a conversion value that is filled out with the number 1. And this field is important because once a conversion is reported back to AdWords, we would tell AdWords that this conversion is worth $1 or €1, depending on your currency that you have declared. Now at the moment, in this tag at least, this is hard-coded with the number 1. So every time a conversion is reported back to AdWords, it would be reported as the value of 1. And this would actually count up. So if you have 10 conversions, you would have $10 reported as the total value of all these conversions together. Now in some cases, this might actually represent the actual value of this conversion if you sell only one product on your page with the price of $1. But in most cases with e-commerce stores especially, we have different kind of products in our portfolio which have different prices. So depending on what we put into our cart and check out with, we would get a different total value for our order. So right here we have a total order of $17, which we would like to transfer to our AdWords conversion tracking, but also to our Facebook conversion tracking and a sales event that fires off to Google Analytics. So how can we transfer this conversion value of $17 over to our codes? Now there are different methods here, and I will first show you the preferred and the best practice method of doing this, which is actually implementing a custom data layer. What does that mean? So for example, let's go into our preview and debug mode in our console here, and let's go to one conversion again. Let's take this product this time. And this time we get the conversion total value of 40. And on this page, which is built on an installation of WordPress plus the plugin WooCommerce, we actually have a custom data layer implemented, which we can see in our preview and debug mode. When we go to data layer here, we see that there's a data layer that we have the information available to actually send on to our different tools. So we have here the transaction total value, we have the transaction ID, but also all the products that have been bought. Now, how do you implement something like this? This will greatly vary from the installation that you probably have on your shop or on your CMS. In our case, we are lucky because there's a plugin by Thomas Geiger, the Duracell Tomi Google Tag Manager plugin for WordPress, which you can install and which will enable the data layer for you on this transaction page. But this might be different for your setup. So if you're on Magento or on PrestaShop, you might be able to install a plugin that does this automatically for you. In another case, you would actually need to consult your developer, asking him to transfer this conversion value into the data layer so you can pick it up from there. Now, how do you pick actually this total transaction value up? Well, there is a data layer consists of key value pairs. So in our case, we have here our key and our value. And so we simply take the key here and put it into a variable, which we can build. So let's go to variables and define a new variable, which we will call the data layer transaction value, and go ahead and select our data layer variable as the type. And here we just simply need to import the key, that in our case was the transaction total. And that's already it. We can create this variable and refresh our preview and debug mode. Now we need to go through another order quickly. And on our transaction page, we can see in the preview and debug console our different tags that fired, but also up here how the variables got filled. For that, we first need to select a event. Now our tags fire on the page view event, so I'll go with page view here, click into variables, and we can see our data layer transaction value was set to 25, which in our case is the total amount of 25. So we can take already this data transaction value and implement it into our tags. This is pretty easily done by going into the tag, and every time you see this little brick here, you have variables available. So let's get rid of this number 1 and click on this little brick. We get our data layer transaction value, which is marked by these 2 curly brackets, which usually describe a variable. Now every time this variable is called, it will pull out the data from our data layer and transfer it into our tag. So this is one of the methods of how you can transfer the data to our tag. And it's actually the preferred method in Google Tag Manager, because with a proper data layer integration, we have the data available in a structured way, and Google Tag Manager can access it through the methods that it has available, whatever tool we want it to transfer onto. Now I'm going to show you the second method here of doing this, which is generally called scraping from the actual DOM. It's just important to say that the data layer variable is not as error prone as the scraping method, because the scraping method actually relies on the displaying of the values on the page. So if the page changes, your tracking might be affected. With the proper data layer integration, you don't run the risk of having your data being affected by a change that happens on the presentation level. But on to our next adventure here to get our total value out of this page, and which is the method of scraping. Now I've talked about scraping before in another video about the DOM element variable, which you can check out in our previous videos. But in this video, I'm going to show you another method of doing this with actually JavaScript. Now let's look at this page a little bit closer. We can actually look into the underlying HTML by inspecting the element that we are interested in by right-clicking on it and then inspect element. This is the case in Chrome. And we can see the HTML markup and how it's marked up. Now with a JavaScript variable, we could actually access this element and pull out directly from the document object model our amount of $25. Now there's no problem for somebody who knows JavaScript or jQuery, but all of you out there who don't know JavaScript in detail, I can recommend to you a plugin, the GTM Macro Builder, which you can download in the Chrome extension store, and it will write this JavaScript that you need automatically. So how does it work? You simply need to mark your desired element. So in our case, this would be 25.00. We don't want to have this $sign in our later value. And then you go over to the console in the development toolbar. Let's get rid of this and click on our GTM macro builder. It will give you back some green code, which you can simply copy. And in order to see what it does, we can actually put it into the console here and press enter. And we see it will return a string of our number 25. So how would we make this accessible to Google Tag Manager? Well, we can build a custom JavaScript variable. Let's go over to our variable menu and create a new variable, which we'll call DOM transaction value. And as a type, this time we'll choose our custom JavaScript that we want to implement. Now it's important to follow the rules because we need to, in our function that we need to input here, return a value. I have a snippet here prepared that I often use, which will basically do the same as our anonymous function that we need to implement, just with the catch that there is a try catch error in order to circumvent any kind of errors that might happen in our code. Now we can simply use the code that our GTM macro builder gave us and implement this as behind our return function. So here we go. We can create this variable. And let's try this all out. We'll reload our page here. Choose the right event. Go into variables. And we see our DOM transaction value now pulls the right number out of our total value. Now with this transaction value, we can also fill our tags by, for example, going into our Facebook tag here, looking for the right place to put this in. Here's a value that we can define. It is also filled with 1. And also, like in our tag template for AdWords, we can implement variables by using the curly brackets and implementing our DOM transaction value. Let's save this all and try this all out. Refresh this and go with another order. And on the transaction page, our different tags fire on the page view event. We can look into them, for example, the AdWords event, which pulls from the data layer. And we see this value here, which is underlined with a gray box. But what we can do is up here, can select values that we want to see. And we see that the right value 40 was transferred into our tag. Now this pulls directly from the data layer. In our Facebook example, we can also use values here and look for the right place where we implemented our variable, which is over here. And also here, it shows our $40, this time pulled directly from DOM element. So these are two methods to import the conversion value into Google Tag Manager and then send them on to your marketing tools. Now this works particularly well with conversion tags such as AdWords, Facebook conversion tracking, or a Google Analytics event that you send a event value with in order to later build a goal of. This won't work for Google Analytics e-commerce tracking. For that you will need a proper data layer integration because there are much more values transferred over to Google Analytics than just the total conversion value. And that's already it with this week's video of measureschool.com. If you want to get an example of all the different tags and variables that we have implemented in this video, then you can head over to measureschool.com/conversion value and download a tag template that you can upload into your Google Tag Manager account. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I would be very grateful if you could like this video or subscribe to our channel so we can bring you more of these tutorials every week. My name is Julian. Till next time.